everybody, and welcome to our review of the BFI Film Festival. I am Jamie, and I'm here with the lovely Lily.
Hello.
And we're going to talk about some films for a bit.
Yes.
So we're going to start off with talking about the film festival itself and how it was set up, because it was a little bit different this year.
Ever so slightly.
To previous years. So unfortunately, we couldn't actually go down to London and watch all the films sort of in person on big screens. So everything was on a website, everything was online this year. And overall, it was great. We had a few nitpicks, which we'll get into.
Very good
but
ones, yeah.
with the time they had to do it and all the possible complications that could have gone
And
wrong.
the fact that it still went on.
It still went on.
We need to save the arts, man. You know,
Yeah,
like, we've got to keep this.
Yeah, and we're both fourth years, this is our final year, so the fact that we could still do it
Yeah.
was so good.
Exactly.
So Lee, why don't you talk about a little bit about your experience with it?
Yeah, so I really enjoyed it. I thought, because for a while there was a lot of insecurity about it, instability. Was it going to go ahead? If so, how? Because there's still screenings around the country. There was so it was at BFI. There's another one in Bristol, which we were the closest to. But it was this idea of, okay, if it's going on, are we going to go? Is it a little bit irresponsible for us to go? But in the end, we watched everything online, and it was amazing. It was really nice that we were still able to it felt like we were there. It felt like we were able to participate. The one criticism I would maybe say is less with the way that it was set up, but more that it sort of relied on a solid Wi-Fi stability. Because I live in a house with 5 other people. We've got whatever asynchronous and synchronous teaching is going online. So you've got lectures, seminars, live lessons going on. And sometimes it did pause, buffer, and then if you refresh the page, because how it was that you had the lines, the film set up, you had when they were released, so say it was 9:30, and you had an hour to click on that link and access the film. Otherwise, it was gone, and then it wasn't available for you anymore. So sort of mirroring how it would have been if we were there in person. But that did mean if you clicked on it and then you didn't get to watch it until sort of 45 minutes later, and then halfway through the film, it stopped. You didn't get to watch the rest of the film.
Yeah, which
that happened a couple of times.
It happened to me a lot, so I have a lot of films where I don't know the end 20 minutes because the film just either my Wi-Fi went and then I lost access to the film, or I was watching it later than usual. So there was also a rental period. So if the rental period ended, then that was
crazy.
Also
Jamie literally was watching. I think there was one day you watched 4, 5 films. That was hardcore.
It was a lot.
There was one. We're just about to start talking about it, but one day I watched Time, which we're also going to talk about, Mangrove, which we're also going to talk about, and then The Reason I Jump, which is another sort of a documentary kind of film. And I was crying. I literally messaged Jamie at the end of the day, because it was The Reason I Jump was the last one we were watching, the last one of the day. And I said, I'm emotionally exhausted because each different one focuses on quite different problems or issues, and it was just draining. So I don't know how you did because what it was, lots of my stuff is in the middle of the day for uni, so it would be exactly the same. I'd wake up 9:30, have it going on, and then I'd have, say, one of these really emotional films, and then I'd go to my oral class for French, and they'd be like, why aren't you talking? I'm like, I just can't.
Can't right now.
Too many ideas going around my head.
Yeah, so by the end of the day, you're kind of just broken and you don't know, you just don't know what to do.
But the films for the festival this year, there was such a big variety. It was so lovely to see so many alternative perspectives. It wasn't just Hollywood, white people, middle-class people. It was really great issues that it spoke about. I really enjoyed this festival. It's probably my favourite one that I've been to. It was a brilliant.
So if anyone ever has the opportunity to go to any other film festival, because obviously what's also great is you have films from a variety of different countries, and as you said, different themes and different topics. It's films that you won't normally see in the cinema, that they won't get a wide release. And some of them will be weird. Some of them will be experimental films. Like there was one film, a German film, Undine, and one of the main points that I wrote was big fish. What? So there's some strange ones, but you know, a great opportunity to watch all different kinds of films.
Definitely go to as many film festivals as you can. Yeah, that's what I would say.
So thank you, BFI, and let's get on to our first film, and one of our top films in all the ones that we watched, Mangrove. So directed by Steve McQueen, the first in his Small Axe anthology series. So there's going to be 5 films. This is the first of the 5, based on the true events of the Mangrove 9, based on Black British history. So we've got, to read out a few people in the cast, Letitia Wright as Althea Jones-Lecointe.
Amazing, by the way. Brilliant.
I'll bay. Malachi Kriby as Darkest House, Shaun Parkes as Frank Chrichlow, and Rochenda Sandell as Barbara Beese.
There may be some who believe that they have been the victim of injustice at the hands of the police. Others who, like parasites, feed on these beliefs and seek to turn them to their own advantage, deliberately creating hate and violence. These defendants are all guilty of the serious criminal offence.
This attack on a black establishment is not an isolated event, but a sustained campaign against black people. And today we are saying enough is enough.
An excellent cast. We were talking before, apart from Letitia Wright, who's maybe a bigger name, a lot of these people, we may not know their names, but we're like, I know you from most British
exactly.
BBC
we're like, you're
shows.
synonymous with sort of like, yeah, exactly that, like British, like BBC One, BBC Two, ITV, sort of dramas.
Like, I know you, but I don't know where from.
Exactly.
So yeah, absolutely amazing cast. I think this was great casting, especially Letitia Wright.
Yes.
She, you know, again, she's a big name, but she's a big name for a reason. She was great, but also
the role that she brought to it as well, she played it spectacularly. I think her casting choice was just amazing. I think all of the casting really on the behalf of Steve McQueen was brilliant.
Excellent.
They really encapsulated the characters. You really got lost in the narrative rather than thinking, I don't really think that fits so well.
Yeah.
No,
and it's a difficult story to sort of tell, because obviously there's nine people, so the choice is who do we focus on and who is the loudest voice in this, and obviously they all have different backgrounds, different personal stories, so whose story do you sort of focus on? In this particular film, the sort of main focus, at least for the first third of the film, is Frank Chrichlow, the man who owned the Mangrove restaurant, which is the sort of epicenter of this unfortunate event. And at first, he doesn't seem like the most obvious choice, especially when you have, we keep talking about Letitia Wright, but when you have such a big name like her, you would think maybe you focus on her character.
She would be the obvious money-making choice, wouldn't she? Plaster her name everywhere, her face everywhere.
Yeah. But no, they decided to focus on this restaurant owner, and it was such a good decision, because he is, at least at the start of the film, he's not the go-get-em civil rights leader that, you know,
he actually shies away from it quite a lot, doesn't he? There's a scene where the Black Panthers are sort of all meeting, and Althea, who is played by Letitia Wright, her character is there, she's sort of a leader, and they're all discussing Frank Chrichlow, because they're basically wanting him to sort of help with the Mangrove, help the Black Panther cause, but they're all saying he won't do it, that's not Frank. And that is definitely his ideology for probably the first half of the film, wouldn't you say, at least the first third. He's angry, but he's tentative to act. Obviously, as the film shows, why? Because the white intimidation is so high. But by the end of the film, you really see his sort of like unification with not just the Black Panthers, but the black community, and it's just great.
Just great. Really That's our main review, that the film is just great. But it's such an important story. It's a story that a lot of people won't know about. I think, one of the main reasons why Steve McQueen is doing this anthology series. It's based on, or all the stories are about the Black British experience, because it's just history that we don't know about, and unless you're doing the research like we have done for this film and for other projects as well, it's a name you might hear but you don't know anything about.
Exactly.
Which is really unfortunate, but it's so important that this story is being told, and hopefully it will be sort of the discussions about the Black curriculum being brought more into schools. This would be a great option for all those times that teachers don't want to teach a subject and you want to stick on a film. Do this. This is a excellent film.
Especially because I remember in school we did learn all about the civil rights movement. We never looked at civil rights in the UK or in Britain or in London even, which after we've done a couple of projects together, we now know is not as maybe as spectacular, so to speak. There wasn't so many marches. But it's just as rich. It's definitely just as rich, and I think it's a real shame that we don't look at that, because it just lends into this narrative that America's the best.
It's that sort of narrative that not only does America have sort of the greatest upheaval and the greatest civil rights movement, but also America's
an American problem.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's worse, and that's just not. It's not the reality.
Different here.
Yes.
Like we were talking about how this film, it really focuses on how everything was just cold. Like, the police officers, the judge, the jury, it's very obvious that they go into it already prejudiced against Mangrove 9, the Black community. And it's little passive aggressive microaggressions.
Yeah.
And it's different to America, but that doesn't mean it's better.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that there's less of a problem in the UK.
Exactly.
Because to do so is just to undermine it completely. So this is why the film by Steve McQueen is so important. And hopefully, it becomes mandatory viewing for sort of that 14, 15-year-old student.
Absolutely. And
because who doesn't want to watch a film instead of doing a lesson?
No,
so really,
that's what I do.
Perfect. Me too, as a film student.
Yeah, I try and watch as many films for research as possible.
Exactly.
But yeah, and Steve McQueen did such a good job of encapsulating the Black community. Also, he's obviously of Caribbean descent, I believe. I don't know which island specifically. I think it might be Jamaica. But coming from a similar background, you're just like, I recognise these people. Like, that's my aunt, that's my gran.
That's brilliant, though. Finally.
Exactly, and I've never really had that before, and it's exactly the same in the second instalment of his film series, Lovers Rock. Exactly the same thing. Just that sense of community. So when the Mangrove restaurant is being attacked and raided by the police, you feel it's the community, because everyone is in that restaurant. Everybody knows everybody.
Is there any place to go? Is there any place that their community feels like they can celebrate their heritage, celebrate their culture?
And I think there's I can't remember exactly what the quote is, but where one of the scenes when the police are raiding, Frank Chrichlow said, "It's just a restaurant. It's just we're just trying to eat. We're just trying to like live our lives. Some spicy food,
He's really funny. Frank Chrichlow is really funny. There's one point where he says, "It's spicy food. It's not for you." I love it. It's so brilliant.
It was making me homesick for my mum's food. But he did such a good job of really seeing how that community was being just affected, and like you were saying before, the way they eventually came together to try and tackle this issue of racism and the microaggressions and everything. Exactly. It's the looks, it's the coldness, it's all of this sort of things that sort of built into society, which you might look on the face of it and it's like, oh, it's not that bad.
Exactly. Well, that's what we were talking about, the fact that there's this sort of, when we look at, say, 12 Years a Slave, which looks at the era of slavery, in our heads we think slavery gone, like that was a long time ago, at least for the UK, and so that when we watch narratives on it, it's sort of like, oh, this was just terrible, thank God this is in the past because this is inhumane, it's disgusting. Whereas when we look at, say, what was happening in Mangrove, which was the 70s, 80s time, I believe, it's embarrassing because, as we were saying earlier as well, not much has changed, really. The microaggressions have shifted, and now there's a lot more legality in place. But still, it's embarrassing that like for example, the judge at the end of the film, in the court scene, or in the court section of the film, he says it's very clear, or something along the lines of, it's very clear that there were racist acts on both sides, so against black people and against white people. And you're just like, no, it's literally not. But but does that not sort of have precedent nowadays with this idea, you know, that we all know who we're talking about?
Mr. Man,
that big one, that big boy.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see like when exactly the script was written, and particularly if that line was actually said by the judge, or if that was put in by Steve McQueen to resonate
Have sort of
more.
like a modern criticism as well.
Yeah, and sort of bringing in what's his name, Spike Lee,
Yeah.
the Spike Lee kind of thing where he adds in
Yeah.
bits into the film, especially at the end of the film, to bring it back to the modern day.
Exactly. Let's make it resonate, isn't it? It's to
yeah.
make sure that it's not fine. It is a commentary on the past, but look how it still is important nowadays.
It's
still
relevant.
applicable nowadays. Exactly.
Yeah. So definitely a film of this current climate, of this current discussion. Definitely one we could probably talk about for another 2 hours.
Too long.
But we just do not have the time. So is there anything else you want to bring up? Apart from we love Letitia Wright.
Yeah, I think we love Letitia Wright a little bit too much.
Yeah.
I will just say that I really liked the character of Barbara as well.
Yes.
I think it's very easy to have sort of like Darkus, Frank, Althea, and then Barbara sort of becomes not domesticated, but you know, because she has a baby. But there's the scene at the start where she's talking to Darkus about how obviously Darkus grew up in a region where black was the majority, and then he's come here and then he's become the minority. Whereas Barbara says, I grew up here, you know, I was never adopted. This is my life. This has always been everything I've ever known, and that it made me cry. She's so powerful. Yeah. Well done, Mangrove.
Well done, Mangrove. Cool. Okay, so let's get on to. Thank you for watching the video. More of our reviews at the BFI Film Festival are in the works, so please watch this space if you'd like to check them out.